Hello, and welcome to Modern HVAC, Why the Hotel Industry is Adopting VRF Systems. I'm Elaine Simon, Senior Managing Editor with Hotel Management. As we've seen this year, the hospitality industry is constantly evolving. More than ever, the systems that keep hotels and lodges running must prioritize energy efficiency and cost. As heating and cooling technologies progress, more hospitality venues are choosing variable refrigerant flow zoning systems over conventional HVAC equipment to achieve lower energy use and monthly operating costs, greater sustainability, and superior comfort control for guests. Today's roundtable will take a look at the basics and benefits of VRF systems and share industry insiders' perspectives on their experience using VRF technology. The first person I'd like to introduce is Tom Varga, Business Development Manager for Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US. Tom has been with Mitsubishi Electric since 2007, helping to pioneer the evolution of variable refrigerant flow heating and cooling technology in the U.S. by collaborating with authorized distributors, contractors, and the engineering community on local, regional, and national projects. He currently works with hospitality ownership groups and developers across the country, establishing comprehensive HVAC solutions from concept through commissioning. Next is Bharat Patel, CEO and Chairman of Sun Development and Management Corporation. Bharat is a recognized expert in design, hotel development, construction, operations, franchising, and financial deal structuring. Under his leadership, Sun Development has developed more than 60 hotels and is still growing. He's been the recipient of several industry accolades from Hilton, including Embassy Suites Developer of the Year, the Family Developer of the Year Award, and All Suite Developer of the Year. We also have Gary Vermas, CEO and Principal of Base 4. With more than 25 years of experience in structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design and construction, Gary leads his culturally and technologically diverse team of more than 270 individuals, developing technology-driven, organizational, and AE data sharing systems. His team works on an array of project types, including hotels, multifamily, senior living, and mixed use. Last but not least, we have Carl Wren, Senior Vice President of Concord Hospitality. Carl joined Concord Hospitality in 2013 and brings a wealth of construction knowledge, having managed both ground-up and renovation projects across the country. With experience in the general contractor side and the ownership side of project management, he uniquely understands what goes into a successful hospitality application. Thank you, panelists, for joining us today. We're going to start off with Tom, who is going to give us a brief introduction to VRF. Tom?
Well, thank you, Elaine. Before we get into today's discussion, we're going to give an overview of the basics of VRF, for variable refrigerant flow technology, its operation, and how it can be applied. So what are VRF systems? They're systems, heating and/or cooling systems, which can precisely control the flow of refrigerant through small diameter insulated copper piping to multiple zones, areas, and guest rooms throughout your hotel property. This can provide both simultaneous heating and cooling system, which is very desirable for most, if not all, of your hotel guests. By doing so, this whole system, between the outdoor units shown here, the various indoor units, and throughout the building and back of house operations, you can precisely control temperature and precisely control your energy usage. What's different about the VRF operation of this equipment is that traditional HVAC cooling and heating equipment uses standard compressors in most cases, which cycle on and off. With VRF technology, nearly all use inverter-driven compressors, which modulates the flow of electricity and modulates the temperature bands that you see here. By compressing the bands of operation here, we can tighten up and control energy costs on a zone-by-zone or room-by-room basis, providing a very comfortable environment and doing so very efficiently. VRF also offers personalized heating and cooling comfort. So regardless of what the hotel guest desires and what the temperature is outside, you can provide a very comfortable and efficient operating system within the hotel rooms. A typical hotel environment demands simultaneous heating and cooling system that most VRF systems can provide, because the heating and cooling requirements are different throughout the building. Common areas, gyms, guest rooms all demand a heating or cooling dimension, regardless of how many people are in there or not. There are two different styles of VRF equipment. We have both air source and water source outdoor units. The air source exchange the ejected heat to the outside environment, and the water-cooled systems typically uses an interior loop, either chilled or heated water throughout the building. In addition, there's a variety of indoor unit styles, types, and capacities, and those can allow the architectural community to incorporate these into virtually any style, design, room layout you envision. So what type of projects can benefit from these VR systems? Well, quite frankly, basically any type of project can be tackled with the use of VRF systems. Small projects, large projects, new construction, retrofits and historic renovations. These are very flexible systems that can be incorporated and to provide a very comfortable, energy efficient environment. Recently, there's two hotels, the Nomad Hotel in LA, which is an historic renovation, which took advantage of this fact, and also the Inn at Willow Grove outside of Washington, D.C. in rural Virginia. This property also incorporated VRF into their upscale bed and breakfast type facility. So Elaine, back to you.
Much for that that explanation. I think we all have a better appreciation and understanding of the systems now. So we'll go right into our first question. As we all know, the hotel industry is facing unprecedented times. From your insights, what are the current realities of the industry, and what are the must-have features for any mechanical system you're installing or retrofitting a hotel with right now? Carl, let's start with you.
Sure. So obviously, right now, the hotel industry and the entire travel industry is in some tough times. I think that's gonna change here in the near future, and we're all very optimistic that the next few months are going to be fantastic, and we'll get past the election, and things will really start turning better. In terms of what is required on our, obviously, in hospitality, our guest comfort is critical. You know, everybody has slept in a hotel room where you've either had air blowing on your face, it's not warm enough, it's not cold enough, the HVAC system is too loud, keeps you up at night. All those things are just so critical in the hotel world. We're ranked now online, as everybody knows. TripAdvisor, other various online platforms. And if you've got a bad HVAC system, other people, before they even ever go to your hotel, are going to know that. And I'm very happy to say that since we've started using the VRF system, with Tom's nudging and help, we've been extremely happy with it. It provides comfort, the humidity levels, the sound in the rooms is incredible because compressor is outside, it's not in the room. There's just numerous factors. We've recently completed a hotel in West Palm Beach called the Ben, which is an Autograph Collection hotel. And as you can imagine, West Palm Beach is a tough climate. And in the middle of the summer, we had nothing but compliments on our HVAC system. We got guest feedback that says, you know, I didn't even know there was an air conditioning system in there. It's so quiet. It's so comfortable. When I change the temperature, it works. Been to so many hotels where it takes forever. So to say that we're happy with the VRF system is definitely the truth.
Great. We'll actually come back to the Ben Hotel in a few minutes. Bharat, what about your must-haves in projects?
Well, you know, we develop full service hotels like Embassy Suites, and in the past, all the engineers would suggest or design a two-pipe system or four-pipe system. And the reality is that right now in current situation with the low occupancies, those system runs 100% capacity and burns a lot of energy. And specifically this time, like today, there is a 55-degree temperature here, and some folks want to have 55 to 65 shoulder months.
We hear you, but there's some issues. So we'll come back to you. Gary, your turn. What do you see? What about?
Thank you, Elaine.
Okay.
Listen. During this time, the design of the HVAC system is more important than ever in the eyes of everyone, really. And I think that the keys that you have to hit on, or we are talking a lot more about in design, are ventilation. Ventilation is extremely important to the guests, also to the health of everyone. We need to make sure that we've got the proper amount of outside air that's being designed, that's being delivered into the hotel room. We need to make sure that we have the proper number of air changes. And a lot of our clients are requesting more air changes than even the code requires at this point. And then finally, filtration. Filtration has been an interesting topic. People are asking for more and better filters, HEPA type filters, and MERV 16 filters, and 13 up to 16. And so there's a lot of requests. There's a lot more interest. As you know, I think before the pandemic, HVAC was just all about comfort, and now you've got this health component, or at least health awareness component to it, that we hadn't seen before. So what's great about the VRF system is it works toward that direction. I think it's the best choice in all of the hotel systems out there right now. And I think definitely you're going to see more and more clients interested in it because of those reasons. So it's a different design parameter than we've dealt with previously.
And I agree with you. People are becoming experts in things that they never thought that they wanted or needed to in the past. So I can see that being an issue, nowadays. So Gary, sticking with you, from an AEC perspective, what would you say are the main drivers of VRF system adoption in hotels? Is it that filtration and cleanliness?
Well, yes, of course, that's important. I think the number one driver in hotel HVAC systems is guest experience. Carl touched on that before. We've all been in bad situations in hotels, and it's made our night stay not great. And so when people often want to compare the PTAC or the VTAC to the VRF, and that's like saying, hey, the Lexus and the Ford Fusion are both cars, therefore they're both the same. And that's what people do all the time. These are the same, and they're very, very different. You can't say that about those two different cars. Now you're asking what the main drivers are. What's funny is before COVID, the main driver to VRF that we saw was the sound rating, the STC rating of the exterior wall. So if you had we did many hotels at airports, near highways or train stations or near train lines, and the PTAC just could not give you that STC rating that you needed for the room. The VTAC even struggled. And so when you move to VRF, obviously that fan coil unit goes up into the coil. You don't have any penetrations in the exterior wall, and it does give you a much better STC rating, which all goes back to guest experience as well. And I think, again, Carl touched on it before, the guest experience of being in a hotel room without the condenser coming on is unbelievable. Like we didn't even know there was an air conditioner. So the idea that guests can go to sleep and not hear that condenser of the PTAC or VTAC cycle on and cycle off probably is the number one driver. That's just that guest experience that makes the stay that much more incredible. I mean, a couple minor things are the aesthetics. You don't walk into a room and see the PTAC there. I mean, right away that gives people the motel feeling, and so that's kind of nice. And then, if you do switch from a VTAC unit to a VRF, you do gain the space on the floor. You're not building that closet. And then finally, for the owner point of view, the VRF system does bring much better energy efficient. There is an ROI there. There's rebates, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later under the financial section. And so the VRF costs, the initial costs are coming down, and they are trying to get more competitive. But now you've got the rebate piece and the energy efficient, which really does work into an ROI that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. You definitely have to look long term with projects. I see that. So, Tom, what are you seeing from hotels? What are the main drivers that are pushing them to contact you for this kind of system?
Yeah, I think there's an awareness out there that's been growing. I've seen over the last 10 to 15 years. There's a better understanding of what the system can do. We touched upon energy efficiency, and I think Bharat was discussing that a few moments ago. In these times when occupancy levels are not ideal, you can have control over shutting down a block of rooms or a single floor and not have to worry about heating or cooling that with a VRF system. It's very easily accomplished using a VRF system, unlike a 2-pipe or 4-pipe boiler chiller system where you have to heat and cool the entire facility. Owners are looking for return on their investment. There's the coefficient of performance and cooling performance of this equipment is extremely good and high. Gary touched base on the fact that there are some rebates in specific areas throughout the country that are available to help the investment in the development dollars of creating a project like this. So Mitsubishi's, or we're involved with all aspects of the project, from conceptual phase of design through the startup and commissioning process, to make sure that the experience that the owner and developer are hoping to gain is met. Their expectations are met or even exceeded.
Okay, great. So Carl, back to the Ben Hotel. What about that hospitality management perspective? Your team has completed projects with this technology, most recently the Ben Hotel in West Palm Beach. How has your experience been since opening? And what about that comfort management with fewer guests?
Yeah, it's been a fantastic experience. And to be honest, as an owner's representative, I'm always worried that something might go wrong. And no different here. How's it going to work in South Florida? Is it going to perform? And like I said, it's been fantastic. It's energy efficient. It cools quickly. It maintains great humidity. I mean, it's been a fantastic system. I noticed a question on the board as well. I think this answers some of those questions. In the middle of the summer, we had many a days that were over 100 degrees, and we had no issues that I am aware of. I mean, there might have been one or two, but it wasn't something that the system that couldn't be fixed. It was an improper setting, or we had the wrong filter in, or something like that. It was nothing that it shouldn't have been working. So that's been fantastic, and we've also put it in Milwaukee, Wisconsin recently, in Wauwatosa, just outside of Wisconsin, and it works in cold temperatures as well. So, we're very happy with the system, and all the points that Gary brought up. More floor space. Ours are installed above the ceiling in the entranceway of the hotel room when you walk in. All those things that Gary mentioned. Gaining that floor space, the efficiency. The thermostat works great, so we're seeing energy savings because of the setbacks and different things that the thermostats can do with an online system, etc. It's been a great experience.
Mm-hmm. What was the ultimate deciding factor for this hotel, for the Ben Hotel? Was there one specific thing that sent it over the edge, that this was it?
You know, it's pretty simply, you're either, we were either looking at a 2-pipe, 4-pipe type, old-fashioned fan coil type system, or going with the VRF. And as I spent more time understanding it and we became more familiar with it, installing it in some public spaces in various hotels like our AC in Raleigh or other ones, and got more comfortable with it and saw that it's just a fantastic system. Really, it was an easy decision because the costs are coming down, subcontractors are getting more familiar with it, and it's almost like Gary said, it's like comparing a Lexus to a Chevy. It's just, it was a no-brainer. I mean, once people get more familiar with this system, it's going to become as normal as it's become overseas, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, Elaine, if I could just jump in here for a second. You're talking about two-pipe or 4-pipe system. If a client comes to me, it's a no-brainer. If you're going to go with a 2-pipe or a 4-pipe, you definitely need to be doing VRF. A lot of what we're looking at these days is whether we go VTAC versus VRF or PTAC and VRF. And that's a little bit of a tougher initial price comparison. But if you're looking at 2-pipe or 4-pipe, to me, there's no reason you would ever not consider VRF. I mean, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Okay. Bharat, how about with your hotels? The comfort management with guests, even at less capacity, and along with that, fewer employees at many hotels nowadays. How does that work for you?
Well, I will tell you that we have installed this system in 6 different embassy suites, and there is one more installation going on right now. The hotel that requires some sort of central system, whether it's 2-pipe, 4-pipe, or VRF, I think the clear choice is VRF because it's a new technology which is being used all over outside of America, especially Canada, Europe, and Asia. And we're just 15, 20, 30 years behind the curve here in this country because it's not been explained well or sold well by the designers as that it costs equal amount or more amount of money. And energy efficiency-wise, there is no comparison. Right now, we're running the lowest occupancies, and the system is scalable. I mean, it's with a diversity of 90+%. You could rent on that 16-unit, one unit serving 16 room. You could scale it down to 2 or 3 units, and it maintains the energy level drastically. Right now, in a shoulder season, we have 2 other hotels that have a 4-pipe, 2-pipe system and a individual coil, heat coil in the guest room. A lot of people are running both, because that way we have to run 100% cooling capacity right now, even though the 20 and 30% occupancy. Yet, so many people that require the heat are turning on the heating element in there. So it's just nothing but a waste of energy. An energy management system that comes with this system is like no other because you can set your higher and lower limit, and people can mess around with the thermostat all they want to, but it's not going to go above or below that, and they're going to feel like they have this air conditioner running, yet it is maintaining the pleasant temperature without them knowing that they cannot run the energy rapidly higher by continuously running it. So it's the guest comfort is the main important thing. Sound is just terrific in these guest rooms, like, no wall penetration on outside. It doesn't matter what the code requires as far as STC rating, but once you penetrate that 42-inch by 17-inch hole in the wall, it's just all out of the window. So we wouldn't look at anything else except VRF system, especially in the hotel that doesn't allow VTAC or PTACs.
Mm-hmm. Tom, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
We're seeing installations in excess of 20 years now, more so in Europe and Asia, but even here in the U.S. The life cycle of this equipment are truly for those owners and developers looking for long-term holds. The energy efficiency, like I said, can be managed correctly. And as energy prices may go up in the future significantly, this is the way to do it. A lot of areas of the country, more traditional heating solutions. There is electrification programs that are being talked and discussed now at the utility level throughout the country. And I think VRF brings a welcome sigh of relief to those areas and can really help accelerate those green type goals.
Mm-hmm. Raised by the number of people I see at a hotel, air conditioning blasting with the door, like doors to the balcony wide open. You can almost see the cloud of air conditioning and energy just, streaming out the windows. So I think that we need to work on that, a guest education program, I guess. All right, so obviously you've all used and continue to use VRF in your projects. And while this isn't a new technology, for some hotel owners, like you mentioned, this is the first time they're learning about it since it's not as widely known here. What's critical for hotel brands to know about VRF? Tom, we'll start with you since you are the expert.
Oh, well, thank you. I think the first thing to do is to get engaged with the VRF vendor as soon as possible during the conceptual phase discussions. What is it that you want to build? What banner will you be developing? Let us understand the brand standards of the product that you're developing. Let us understand your past history and trying to determine what it is that is important to you as a company in order to develop a viable project for a long-term hold. The nice thing is that VRF manufacturers have been in this country for quite some time. We are prepared to work through the engineering and architectural discussions with people like Gary, working with the owners like Bharat and Carl, and I identify quickly what are some better approaches. We have to take into account where the hotel is being located. Is it in Florida, like Ben, or is it in Colorado, or Indianapolis, or maybe up in the Northeast where it's colder climates? The decision to use an air source or a water source all come into play as well. Retrofits in historical buildings also drive some of those discussions. So it's important to investigate that, take the time to explore that so that ultimately the best possible solution that fits the budget is developed before construction proceeds. Carl and Bharat, you should be comfortable with everybody else on this presentation that there's a considerable amount of contractors who have gained a depth of experience in installation of this. It's not a brand new technology anymore. We've had 15 to 20 plus years of installation experience, so the contractors know how to install it correctly, following our piping guidelines, things like that, so the installation is virtually seamless. And even more importantly, towards the startup and commissioning phase, there's factory assistance that is typically offered to help support through the final stages of construction and meet the opening date, the opening date of the hotel itself. So we're even there beyond those dates. We're involved with the owner throughout the duration of the project and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Gary, I assume that it is much more cost effective for the owners to like Tom said, do this as soon as possible in the process. Can you talk a little bit about from a design standpoint?
Yeah, and again, we have to go back to what we're comparing to. If we are comparing this system to a 2-pipe or a 4-pipe, are we comparing this system to a VTAC system? So early on, the earlier we get involved, the better, right? The earlier. So if we're designing a hotel, we like to touch base with Mitsubishi, and they've been awesome. I mean, they have an incredible team. They give us a lot of input, a lot of design. We actually can identify contractors before we even start the design. So from that point of view, yeah, it is an easier system to design. I think we're going to talk about that later, but a little bit easier to design because of just how compact the equipment is. And then also, I just want to say, as we're talking about this, Base 4, we design about 80 hotels a year. I mean, before COVID. And, when the HVAC system doesn't work, we're the first call ever, always. It's like, hey, something's not working. I've never had a call on a VRF system. Never. Not one complaint. So that says something, right? I mean, Carl and Bharat might have had, it seems like they've had similar experiences as well. But that's really nice when you got a system that's up and running and, man, there is no complaints.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Carl and Bharat, what do you think is critical for hotels to know? Either of you?
Can you hear me?
No, just slightly.
Yep.
Yeah, now we can.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So we the oldest system we have is from 2008, 2009. So it's over 10 years. We haven't had any trouble whatsoever. We never had any calls. We never had any unit down. And if you get back talking about alternative, which is 2-pipe or 4-pipe system, that maintenance is tedious. Every year you have to work on cooling tower and the chiller and all that stuff. And get it kept up to date. And in any event, if you ever have to replace something, you're talking about 3-4 weeks of downtime. And what do you do then? And with this system, at most, if one unit is wrong, you're bad or something needs to be fixed, you're only talking about 16 rooms out of the service for a shorter period of time. So that's very critical. We haven't had any issue whatsoever in all 6 hotels in 10 plus years. So. It's been working out great. Maintenance wise, that's a lot of savings because you're not constantly having to maintain that equipment like other systems.
Okay, you're back out again. Okay. All right, great. So, Tom, you mentioned a little bit about service and support. Can you speak to this a little bit more and explain the METUS approach when selected for a project a little bit in more detail?
Sure. So, as I mentioned earlier, to get started sooner rather than later is very important. I think any of the hotel owner developers out there who are considering projects to place in their pipeline in 2021 and beyond, get a hold of us initially. Let us get engaged with your architect that you selected early on. Let's have those discussions. Even if something doesn't proceed from beyond a back of napkin approach discussion, we can at least explore some of the choices of some of the product technologies that are available today. We've got a few other designs that are or a few other technologies that are being introduced next year that's going to continue to help propel VRF and other solutions to save money. That's going to be the key for the short term here. How can we save money? Even though VRF may be a little bit more expensive on first costs and equipment, I think the long-term play here is to invest in this type of equipment. Once we go past the architect, we'll get involved with the engineer, regardless of where the engineer is located, whether it's within the region where the hotel's eventually going to be located, or it's clear across the country. We can put together quickly a team behind the scenes so that there's a single point of contact with the hotel owner, developer, and the team. But there's plenty of other moving parts behind the scenes to working with the contractors to get to get them trained on the latest versions of equipment that's being released that's going to be incorporated into the hotel. This is all working on behind the scenes. You don't need to talk to 10 or 12 people from our company. There's 1 or 2 points of contact. So the ownership experience, I think, is very good. It's not burdensome, but at the end of the day, we can deliver a product and be on time to meet the overall project timeline. And even once it gets to startup and commissioning, we're there as well to aid the successful mechanical contractor overcome any hiccups that may occur, during the actual construction cycle.
Okay. So Bharat, you develop both mid-range and upscale hospitality projects. What do you expect out of your HVAC system from a design perspective?
Yeah, well, where it is required to have some sort of central system, whether 2-pipe, 4-pipe, or VRF type of system, I think it's a clear choice for us to go with VRF with our prior experience and what's happening as far as energy savings and maintenance is concerned. The cost has come down significantly in the last 10 years. And on top of that, I think the cost of those alternative systems is as high or even higher than VRF system. So it's a clear choice for us to utilize that system. Now, as far as limited service hotels are concerned, price is an issue right now, and it is going to continue to be an issue. So on our limited service, we're sticking with the PTAC or VTAC, but for where it is required, we are going with VRF system.
Okay. Let's stick with design a little bit longer. VRF offers significant space-saving capabilities with both ducted and ductless options. And, that can mean the difference between a revenue-generating rooftop bar or just a plain roof. Carl, do you have any examples of this from your own projects where this has helped you, with kind of empty space?
I don't know if it's generated enough space for us to create a whole rooftop bar yet, but it has definitely made design as easy, if not easier, than previous. The controllers, Bharat mentioned them. The 16-hole controllers. Placing them, they can be concealed above ceilings in mechanical rooms or in laundry rooms. In our case, linen rooms on the various floors. It's very easy to lay out. And going a little bit back to the design, the help from Tom and his team with our designers has been incredible. So they make recommendations to our team. Hey, you might want to look at placing a controller here. You might want to modify this a little bit. They'll even lay out all kinds of stuff for us. So the working relationship between our design team and the Mitsubishi team has been fantastic to make sure that the owner's getting maximum space, an efficient design, and end up with a happy product, which is where we've ended up.
Happy is good. Gary, with your line of work, how would you say designing VRF is compared to traditional HVAC systems? As we know, HVAC design can be a sore spot for both architects and engineers when trying to kind of match each other's plans and put a project together.
Yeah, let me start by kind of echoing what Carl said. Working with Mitsubishi and their designer team, anytime you have the product experts with you from day one, it just makes everything a lot easier. And not only are they kind of helping us design, they're bringing all of my team up to speed. With all of the stuff, going down to see the product, going to the factory, understanding how it works, talking to the contractor. Anytime you have that type of information up front as a designer, man, it changes everything because you understand how it goes together. You understand the pros, the cons, and these guys are basically, giving you all that real-time information. So I think that's different than designing traditional HVAC. To designing traditional HVAC, you're not getting that kind of support from anybody else because it's traditional. You should know how it all works. I think also it's easier to design VRF than when compared to traditional because the units are compact, they're tucked away in the ceilings. They use very little power. I mean, I don't know if anyone's touched on that, but the actual fan coil units can be daisy chained together, and you can put a lot of them on one circuit. They use very little power. They're very easy to wire. There's nothing difficult. You know, especially if you're comparing to like a VTAC, where you've got to run, 208 volt, 30 amp, whatever, maybe additional heaters into the guest room. That's a lot of extra copper, a lot of extra power, a lot of extra panels. And I think also understanding that the VRF system does really well in heating as well as cooling. And so it's not just a cooling system. It's rated for very cold temperatures and gives us a lot of flexibility there. So, and then if you look at the front of house VRF and the front of house, again, if you're comparing that to split systems, this is a little bit different than comparing it to a two-pipe, but if you're comparing it to split systems, you do eliminate those air handler closets. You do win back some of your very valuable square footage. And it's just, again, it's easier for that. And finally, if you're looking at design adaptive reuse or some type of retrofitting an existing hotel, I mean, VRF really becomes one of your only real options because now you've got a lot more flexibility. You're not trying to jam a square peg in a round hole. You can tuck these units in a lot of different places. And you've got a lot more flexibility, to run the controllers and the line sets there. And so I think it becomes a great option, or if probably the only option I would suggest for an adaptive reuse or retrofit hotel project.
Okay. Bharat, has these systems allowed you to design any differently in any of your properties?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, has having the VRF systems allowed you to design any of your properties differently because of, using the less space and things like that, especially public spaces?
Well, like the hotels that we have VRF system in, Embassy Suite hotels, most of the rooms are two-room suites, and it is very hard to have the closet in one room and then get the piping, get the ductwork into the other room and stuff like that. It just clean installation because the unit is in a ceiling. The filter is under the unit. It's aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't require any ceiling to be dropped down any further than what the bathroom ceilings are in entryways. And it's just a clean setup. And you could just use a different way to get the air into the two different rooms by using a small duct out of the unit.
Okay. All right. So given the times, proper ventilation is critical for the hospitality industry. And Gary touched on that a bit earlier. Tom, can you offer any thoughts on this? How does VRF support bringing in that fresh outside air and, helping with everything going on nowadays?
Ventilation is an important topic in designing any building today. Type buildings that we have, we offer a couple different designs. One is an energy recovery ventilator, which allows the exchange of indoor air with fresh outdoor air. In fact, there's some MERV 16 rated HEPA filters that are now available for the energy recovery ventilators. And the use of those, you can divide up a building or a floor or however, so it gives flexibility in design. The other traditional way of doing it is to provide a dedicated outside air system, and we do offer products for that. And that's typically a separate system from the VRF system, and that can deliver fresh ventilated air to each room on a 25 to 35 CFM per room basis. So we're doing a lot in that. We also have introduced other products where you can bring in outside air on a floor by floor basis and eliminate the common ventilation shafts, and that helps save money on security on fire dampers rating that Gary, you and I talked a little bit about in the past on some projects. We can eliminate some additional costs by using this other product, our new ducted outside air unit. So once again, it gives flexibility in the design. You just don't have to build the same old hotel as the big three, the Hyatt, the Marriott, Hilton, and IHG brands that are out there, and Hyatts as well. They're changing their designs a little bit from what they've done in the recent past, and the products that we have can bring in the necessary fresh air to keep the rooms fresh and clean, and so there are design alternatives. Sure.
Okay. Carl, are guests asking about the ventilation in hotels, and is this something you can maybe use as part of, like, you're promoting what you're doing to keep everybody safe?
Yeah, not as much as you would think, but certainly we are getting the question, and Tom and I have had those discussions. So being able to, as Tom has taught me, being able to put in the higher MERV filters into the units. Most guests aren't going to understand what MERV 9 or MERV 13 means. They're basically going to look for some sort of a general comment that, yes, we are increasing the level of filter so that it kills 98% of all airborne, those type of general questions. So yes, we've gotten a little bit of it. We try to keep it a little bit higher level so that it shows that we are doing something more, not really on this topic, but more people are looking for less touch points in the room. Don't put all kinds of throw pillows and various stuff that our housekeepers have touched. Less is better. Clean surfaces. Having the room feel and look clean is the most important thing right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This next question you all get a chance to answer. We'll start with Tom on this, though. Can you talk about the cost, benefits, and ROI of VFR?
I think there's a number of areas. If you're using perhaps water source heat pumps, if you will, there are tremendous electrical feeds that can be virtually eliminated or downsized, so you can save overall on the costs. The amount of electricity consumed on a per room basis is minimal, as Gary had mentioned earlier in this conversation. We are also now introducing some newer products called our Heat 2.0 heat pump. It's a hot water heater that will address the entire domestic hot water requirements of hotels and other large type projects. This is going to be introduced early in 2021, but I think it's going to be a game changer. It's really going to affect the operational performance of the hotel. I know I talked a little bit to Carl. Carl and his firm are looking at incorporating this in some future projects as well. And Gary and Bharat, these are all available to you beginning in 2021. And I think it's really going to help. Like I said earlier in this webinar, it's going to help those owners and developers navigate through these trying times right now. But I think returns on investment, it's like anything else. If you're a long-term holder on this property, I think VRF and products like this domestic hot water heater are going to really help you do very well against your performance.
Okay. Bharat, what do you see as the cost, benefits, and ROI of this?
Well, you have to look at the system as a long-term benefit rather than right out of the gate. Energy efficiency is the number one. Savings in repair, maintenance expenses, ongoing expenses like that is the second one. Third one is that guest satisfaction drives the higher revenue. Like, the guest comfort is the number one thing. HVAC is rated number one before even the bathroom and the bedding. So somebody mentioned about TripAdvisor and stuff like that. You can go look at our hotel's TripAdvisor reports or comments and see how satisfied the guests are based on great comments about how comfortable the hotel is and the air is in the room. So it's indirect benefit to have those guests keep coming to you because of the comfort level that the system offers.
Okay. And Gary, you mentioned rebates as a good way to help with the ROI and the cost with this.
Yeah, we had recently done a hotel with a VRF system. It was a small hotel, 100 rooms, and the local utility company, because we weren't using any natural gas for heating, we were using the VRF system. We're giving the owner an $800,000 rebate, and that really helped with offsetting the cost, the initial cost when we compared it versus VTAC. So again, I would encourage all the owners to make sure they're looking at the utility rebates and the local government programs as well.
Okay. Carl, last one for this question. Any thoughts on cost, benefits, and ROI?
Yeah, I mean, it's the long-term savings. The upfront costs, like Gary has alluded to, are slightly higher than a vertical PTAC, VTAC system. So making that comparison on the upfront cost, VTAC still has a little bit better pricing, but when comparing it to a 2 or a 4 pipe traditional system like that, it's become cost neutral on the price test that we've done. And so with it being the same cost, it's a no-brainer that VRF will be our company's choice every time. Great.
Well, our audience members have some questions, so we're going to ask a few of those. One of them is, why is this type of system not used in some locations like New York and its skyscrapers? Anyone have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of projects that we can reference as a company. We've done a tremendous amount of work, both in new construction and retrofits. Certain metropolitan areas, like Philadelphia, for example, where I reside, they currently have an operating but existing steam loop, so it's still attractive to some owners to go ahead and tie into that. So there, it's going to vary on a project by project and location by location basis, but there are certainly plenty of opportunities in high-rise buildings to do a floor or two, or eventually canvas the entire building. We have done that within Mitsubishi for sure.
Yeah, I think in New York's a very old city that you can still buy steam, which is piped under the ground for heat. So, and then you're going to have the unions and just a very traditional mindset. So they're going to go with what they know, steam in a 2-pipe system or however they decide. So yeah, probably you're with New York, it's a little bit different, but yeah, we're seeing VRF in all the other urban areas as well as New York as well.
Okay. This next question, a few of you touched on briefly, but how does the VRF system perform in extreme climates over 100 degrees and under 32? Seems like it's still a perfect fit.
Absolutely. Carl, you said you witnessed some 100-degree temperatures down in Florida on the hotels that you have down there without a blink of operation. You've also done one in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Hadn't seen winter yet there, but certainly I expect to see that. Also, we've done projects in the Rocky Mountains as well as the upper Northeast. We have equipment that's rated down well below zero for performance without any type of auxiliary heating. So once again, it all goes back to getting involved with the owner, developer, and architect and engineer early on. Let's have those discussions. Let's meet those design challenges, bring them to us, and we could tell you yay or nay. We have products that can help out, or no, we don't. And if we don't, then you have to look at something as an alternative. And we're more than happy to help out in that way.
It never hurts to look into it.
No.
Okay. What is the approximate installed cost premium over a non-VRF system? What are the approximate energy savings versus a non-VRF system? So that's a two-parter. I don't know if any of the hoteliers have seen any particular numbers, or if Tom, that's more of a question for you, your research.
I can speak in generalities. I think the audience may want something more specific, but by definition, from a designer's perspective, by definition, VRF can maintain easily a 35 to 40% energy savings over traditional split type systems. So you're going to see some tremendous savings there. The way we control it, we've expressed how to control the system. If the occupancy of the hotel is less than desirable, you can shut a floor or two down. So that's how you control it. If you understand the system, you can use and capitalize what's built into our systems and shut those areas off, or control it to what meets today's events. So you're gonna save money that way. Knowing the system, knowing what it can and can't do, is going to help with that. As far as energy savings go, there's rebate money out there. The utility industry is aware of the benefits of VRF technology, and I'm sure everybody's trying to help owners and developers build smartly, build safely, and build efficiently.
Okay. Gary, I think you would be a good one for this next question, since you design 80 hotels a year. What is the most often installed VRF system, ducted or ductless, and why?
I mean, we normally put the VRF system in the guest rooms where it's a ductless system. Fan coil unit is above the guest entry. And then sometimes we put the VRF in the smaller hotels in the front of house, and that would be a ducted system. But sometimes we use just split systems. Maybe Tom can speak to that more, but so there's kind of a mix, right? So we would use a ductless system in all of the guest rooms, one kind of fan coil unit per room, and then in the front of house we would use a ducted system if we didn't use a split system. But again, sometimes we use a combination of those two. Tom, what have you found?
Well, I think there's so many different brands of hotels out there, and the big three have created different tiers or categories of hotels. I would say the economy and mid-scale hotels are still going to lean toward a PTAC, VTAC type solution. As you're going up to higher level, more luxurious brands of hotels, the guest experience needs to be emphasized, as Carl mentioned, and obviously, revenue is a concern. You want to be able to charge a little bit more for the higher level of luxury that you're offering at a higher level property. So the VRF doesn't fit. I mean, it could fit everywhere, but the justification is more at that upper tier, the upper tiers of hotels. That the upper mid-scale, upscale, and luxury type hotels are exactly where it's at. So really what I would say is any hotel that was considering a 4-pipe system or 2-pipe system that Bharat was speaking of earlier, VRF is definitely the way to go. If you have a PTAC oriented hotel, yes, certainly investigate VRF. There may be some mitigating circumstances where it's being placed near an airport and sound levels need to be maintained. So you have to look beyond PTACs, because those PTAC sleeves allow too much sound to enter. So VRF in that particular instance is where you need to apply. So,
okay. All right, one last audience question then. What is the life expectancy for the equipment?
I would say from 16 years from a design engineer's perspective, but we have installations 20 years and older. So it's like any piece of mechanical equipment. If it's taken care of during the life, it's going to give you many, many years of happy returns. If you don't take care of it, it's not going to last as long as you would hope. So 16 to 20 years plus.
Do we have time for one more?
Yes.
I was just going to say,
all right,
Tom,
wonderful.
maybe you want to address a little bit. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Maybe
address
just
what?
want to
I didn't
address-
hear that.
I see a few questions coming up on the refrigerant. We had the same questions when we started getting into it. Some people can make it out to be scary, that it uses refrigerant. It's not. It's a pretty simple system. Now you're creating some water, more use of water in your systems. Maybe just address a little bit, and Gary, on the design of the refrigerant, whether or not monitors are needed, etc.
Yeah, I can jump in right here. We've done a lot of study on refrigerant, and my professional opinion is that the refrigerant and the amounts of refrigerant in the system, based on all the research that we looked at, really are not not scary at all. In fact, we have almost no concerns. Now, Hilton, if you're building a Hilton product, they will require you to put a sensor in their room. I've had many discussions with the head Hilton engineers about this. They disagree with my opinion. They think, no, we need those monitors. But I think most of the research that I read would say, hey, there's not enough refrigerant in the system. Even if it were all dump out into one room somehow, which I don't think is possible from an engineering point of view, would still not be harmful to the human in that room. But again, it's not. We probably need more research on a university level on that topic. But again, nothing I would be nervous about. I've never seen anything like that happen. Tom can talk. I've never seen a refrigerant leak. I've never seen any complaints because of. I've never seen any illnesses or anything. Nothing. I mean, zero data on this as far as I'm concerned.
It all starts from design perspective. If you're getting involved with a system that may have too much refrigerant, then what you could do is split that into two systems. You don't have to try to have one. You have to maintain the refrigerant concentration limits as established by the ASHRAE guidelines, and that's good practice that any licensed engineer is going to do. There hasn't been any catastrophic leaks that caused any harm to any human that I've known about in my 15 years. So it's just good common practice. And it all starts also with the installation community to go back and use best practices when they're doing their brazing of pipes, et cetera, to maintain the integrity of the system refrigerant.
Yep, and that's something everyone should be doing anyways, so.
Right, thank you.
Wonderful. Well, that brings us to the end of today's roundtable. I'd like to thank all of our panelists and viewers for joining us today for this, and especially Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC US. And have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.